In lesson 11, we took our process of completing the square and we learned how to finally solve with it. So now that this first one, we want to solve the equation x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0 in two ways. One by factoring and one by completing the square. So if we factor, we know we have to draw our boxes. So x squared and negative 12. We multiply that imaginary 1 by the negative 12, so multiplies to negative 12, adds to negative 4x. So what does that? That's a negative 6 and a positive 2. So we GCF this top row, we get an x, we get an x, we get a negative 6 and a 2. So our parentheses read x minus 6 and x plus 2 equals 0. We set each of those parentheses equal to 0. We'll add our 6. We get x equals 6. Then we subtract our 2, and x equals negative 2. So now when we go through our process of completing the square, we should be getting the same exact answers. All right, because again, completing the square is really just a different way of solving. So when we add in our lines, we take our negative 4 divided by 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. So 4 goes on the first line. There's nothing to multiply out in front, so negative 4 goes on the second line. X minus 2 is what our factoring becomes. Negative 12 minus 4 is negative 16. So we're equal to 0. So that's the completing the square part. Now we'll do the solving part. So we add the 16 to both sides. X minus 2 squared equals 16. Square root both sides. We just get what's left underneath, and 16 is a perfect square. Remember, we are solving, so it is plus or minus 4. Plus 2 plus 2. And x equals 2 plus or minus 4. Now, a lot of the times we were leaving our answer there because they had radicals. But if they don't have radicals and they're all integers, let's do the math. So x equals 2 plus 4. 2 plus 4 is 6. And x equals 2 minus 4. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. And you'll see that we get the same exact answers that we got from our factoring piece. So now we want to find the solutions to the equation in simplest radical form. If you're told that, there's a really good chance that factoring doesn't work, and you have to do something like completing the square or the next method that we're going to learn. So if we set up x squared plus 8x plus a line, minus 2 minus a line. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. So plus 16, there's nothing to multiply, so minus 16. Don't want to forget my equal 0. X plus 4 squared is our parentheses. Negative 2 minus 16 is negative 18, and we're equal to 0. So now we'll add the 18 to both sides. X plus 4 squared equals 18. Square root both sides. Now, left side's easy, but 18 is not perfect, although it does split. It splits into the square root of 9 and the square root of 2, which we put our plus minus in front. We get plus or minus 3 square root 2. To finish the solving of getting x by itself, we'll subtract our 4. And x is equal to negative 4, that number always goes out in front, plus or minus 3 square root 2. And since it says simplest radical form, we're going to leave our answer right there. And for the last one, find the solutions to the equation to the nearest tenth. Again, if it says nearest tenth, good chance factoring doesn't work, and we're going to have to complete the square. We have a number in front of x squared here, so we have to divide. So we divide both sides, or we divide the first 2 by 4. We get x squared plus 2x plus a line plus 1 minus a line equals 0. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So 1 on the first line. 4 times 1 is 4. So we're minus 4 on that last line. 4 out in front. X plus 1 squared in parentheses. 1 minus 4 is negative 3, and we're equal to 0. So now to start solving, we'll add the 3 to both sides. 4 parentheses x plus 1 squared equals 3. Divide everything by 4. x plus 1 squared equals, now, especially because we're going to end up rounding here, it really doesn't matter what you do with it. There's no reason to simplify or anything, so we're just going to leave it as 3 over 4. We'll square root both sides. Same thing, x plus 1 equals plus or minus square root 3 over 4. If we were asked to do simplest radical form, we'd probably work with that a little bit, but since we're not, we're just going to leave it. Minus 1, and we finish up with x equals negative 1 plus or minus radical 3 over, or square root 3 over 4. Now, again, simplest radical form would tell us to stop right there. But since we are told to round, we have to go into our calculator a little bit. And we have to do negative 1 plus square root 3 over 4 and negative 1 minus square root of 3 over 4. So we go to our calculator, negative 1 plus square root 3 divided by 4, and you get negative 0.1339. I think it wanted to the nearest tenth, so that's going to give us a negative 0.1. And then we're going to put the same thing back in, negative 1, but it's going to be minus square root 3 over 4. And that's going to give us a negative 1.86. So that 6 is going to cause the 8 to round up, and we end up with a negative 1.9. So again, when we have that extra step of needing to round, we just have to separate it with our plus minus, use our calculator, and we're good from there.